Hey everyone, this is James and Chanel Nielsen with Firm Foundation Marriage, and today we'd like to talk to you about intimacy. So I have a few questions for Chanel, and we'll jump right in. First, I wanted to ask you if you feel like it's true that men and women just have completely different sex drives.
Yeah, okay. I think this is a really good question to start off with. I know that when we got married, we were taught that men are like microwaves and women are like crock pots. And this is something that we've taught over the years, we've repeated, and it's rung true for us. And I think in some ways it's probably generally true that men are more like crock pots. I mean, men are more like microwaves.
No way.
Yes, and women are more like crock pots. Now, recent research says that it's not necessarily as clear cut as that. That men, it's not always the man with the higher sex drive and the woman with the lower sex drive. It's not necessarily like that. What research shows is that men generally have a more spontaneous desire. Spontaneous desire meaning you see something or you just have a thought and all of a sudden you have a desire to go, you're ready to go. Where women generally have a more responsive desire. Responsive meaning it kind of takes a little bit longer, crockpot style, to get into the mood, into the moment, to switch gears, to be ready for physical intimacy. And so that can be helpful. But I think it's also important to know that this doesn't always fall along the lines of men and women. So some men may have a more responsive desire and some women may have a more spontaneous desire, and neither one is right or wrong.
Yeah, so when I first heard this, when we were first married, I was thinking, oh my goodness, like, is this going to be something that is going to, I have to really be cognizant of? Like, it's going to be. So I would almost say, too, that it's different phases of life, maybe a little bit. But yes, I would say overall that would be probably true.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point because desire is not always going to be static. And maybe on a vacation, a woman or someone with a more responsive desire might have a more spontaneous desire, or maybe when you're first married, or different times in
Settings, too.
life, different settings, all kinds of different things. And I really think part of the reason why this does run towards men and women is because women are the caretakers and they're the moms and they're always kind of multitasking, doing a lot of different things, and so it can be hard to switch gears, and so I think that kind of lends itself to a more responsive desire.
Sure. Overall, I just think, and I appreciated learning this younger and when we were younger in our marriage, just so that I could be aware of it and notice the differences there.
Yeah.
And that we could talk about it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's really the thing, because it's not like one is right or one is wrong, but if you don't know that there may be this difference or there may be a different type of desire in your marriage, then you're not going to have the necessary sensitivity or the needed conversations about it.
Right. Good. I love that. Anything else you wanted to say on that one? Okay. So next question is, what's the biggest myth our culture teaches about intimacy?
Yeah, I think this really goes along with what we were talking about spontaneous desire. I feel like if you watch a movie, they're just all of a sudden we're in love. Of course, we're going to hop in bed together. Like that's just kind of what happens. And it's not always necessarily the case. So I think that's one thing, that it really looks different than it looks in the movies. And I know you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, when I was thinking about this, I felt like our culture really teaches us that intimacy is like, it's this perfect thing, especially as a man. I feel like, okay, it's like I gotta be suave and slick and like no mess ups. And I think that's completely false. I think that intimacy is gonna be a little bit messy, for lack of a better word, and just not this perfect, flawless experience.
Right. And I think it's not even always going to be romantic. Like sometimes it's silly or funny or playful,
Right.
or these different adjectives you can use. And it's not always passionate romance that we kind of see and think that that's all it can be and that's all it is.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Per-
And then I think the other thing with that the myth that we see in society that we're taught about intimacy is that intimacy is only about the physical. That intimacy, if you are having sex, then that is physical intimacy. I would say true intimacy, physical, sexual intercourse is one part of that, but true intimacy is the physical is just one part of it. It's really being vulnerable, letting yourself be seen, letting yourself be known. That is, you can have an intimate conversation, you can have an intimate moment, and then you have physical intimacy. And if you have those other intimacies as well, then your physical intimacy is going to be true intimacy.
And I think culturally, Hollywood, whatever you want to say, leaves that part out of it completely,
Yes.
right? There's no vulnerability that I see, portrayed. And that is such an important thing to have for connection and to lead to that, what I would think of or call true intimacy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think
That I
that's the
want to
goal.
have
That's the
with you.
goal in marriage, to have that true intimacy,
Yeah.
and the physical is just one part of it.
Yeah, good. Okay. Tell us why you think pressure can actually kill desire
Yeah.
in intimacy, right?
Yes.
With me,
So
okay.
we were talking about this different desires, right? Some people are more spontaneous desire, some people are more responsive desire. And so often in a marriage, and this is something that we hear a lot, that one partner wants more sexual intimacy than the other partner. And sometimes this can lead to pressure. Come on, let's go. Why not? Why don't you ever want to? Whatever that looks like. But what actually ends up happening is that pressure really decreases desire. And one thing that I've seen is even the things that would naturally build desire, like touch, just, holding hands, snuggling, those kind of things that may help the crock pot turn on, so to speak. If there's pressure, if it's only done in a way that feels like this better lead to something, then that actually turns off and shuts down that desire.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that sometimes if you're being intimate just because you feel like you should or need to, or this is what is required, that the pressure is something you want to try to avoid and feel that it's just natural, of course, right?
Yeah. Well, to the earlier point we were talking about of true intimacy, you can have sex without it being true intimacy, but this true intimacy that is the goal, and that true physical intimacy really can't come if there's a lot of pressure, because you're being vulnerable enough to say, this is working for me, or this is what I want, or I feel connected with you in this moment, versus I feel like I have to. That's never going to lead to true intimacy.
Right. And if you're on that special vacation or this special place or setting where you feel pressure to have that, and it's just not working out, I would suggest to you that that's okay. Okay? It's okay. You need to be patient with yourself, with your spouse, and if it's just a night of snuggling and you're at a fancy place, that's okay.
And that will actually build future desire.
Totally.
Letting go of that, we have to, this pressure because of whatever whatever, it's your anniversary, whatever the situation may be, letting go of that pressure, and that will help things to be better in the future.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Good thoughts. Okay. Last question. How can couples talk about sex without it feeling awkward or starting a fight?
Yeah. So David A. Bednar, we once had a conversation with him in actually a marriage retreat setting. And he said something that has always stuck with me. He said, talk about talking when you're not talking about anything else. And I think that relates here, because if you're in the bedroom, there is a level of vulnerability, and that might not be the time to have a conversation. If someone just got turned down or rejected and isn't feeling good, there may be other issues there. But talk about talking when you're not talking about anything else means to me, going for a walk or going for a drive or being out to dinner and just gently bringing up the conversation in a way that is open and asking questions and really seeking to understand. That Stephen Covey, right? Seek to understand before you seek to be understood. So really getting an understanding of where your spouse is coming from and wanting to learn those things, I think is going to lead to a much better outcome and kind of avoid that tendency to fight or to be right in the moment.
Oh, that's so good. I really love that. I agree. I don't even have anything to add to that. I
Okay.
think that's so good. Thank you for joining us today. That was fun to have that short conversation, and I hope it's benefited you in your marriage.